great to have so many people joining, and I'd like to welcome you all to this SC Talks. Talk this month is on women and girls in cycling. We're doing this as part of a celebration of Women and Girls in Sports Week 2020, and this is one of several Scottish cycling events this week. We've had several already, and there's one more on Friday. So it's been a great week to really get everyone on board with this and get lots of engagement with our community. As well as the SC Talks and the online events, there's information on the Scottish Cycling web page. So there's lots of good stuff there if you want to have a look at that. So I'd like to thank you all for joining, and hopefully we have a great talk tonight. We've got a fantastic panel, and I'd like to thank them for coming along. There's some really fascinating areas in this topic, and I feel as though an hour isn't even enough to scratch the surface, but we do have an hour, and we are going to try and finish promptly at 8:30, but hopefully we can have some good debates and good conversations. So my name is Jonah Coburn, and I am one of the non-executive volunteer directors at Scottish Cycling. I've been part of this organisation for maybe just short of a year, but my sort of history in cycling goes back probably about 8 or 9 years, when I got a road bike through the Bike to Work scheme, and I've been pretty keen. My friends would say crazily keen ever since then. So I love the sport, and I love the idea of getting more women and girls participating. But the panel are the ones who've got the real insight and the real opinions. So I'll introduce them. But before that, I'll introduce Mel Toner. So she's the Scottish Cycling officer who's responsible for participation programmes, including the HSBC one. So she's here to keep me right tonight and to channel some of the questions. And I do encourage you all to get involved with the chat. Please feed in your questions, raise your hands as appropriate, and it'll be great to hear from you. So we have 4 great panel members tonight. We have Sarah Rowe, former athlete and coach, Helen Gorman, current rider and coach, Isabel Harris, who's a member of the Scottish Cycling Young People's Panel and Edinburgh Road Club coach. And we also have Leanne Whitehead, a member of the Scottish Cycling Women's Development Group and a Breeze champion. So nobody can introduce them better than themselves. So I'll hand over to each of them in turn, starting with Sarah, if you wouldn't mind giving us a sort of 5-minute resume of what you've achieved in cycling and what your current passion is, and how you've been involved with growing women and girls participation.
Hi everybody, good to see you all tonight. I hope I'm not going to bore you with a little bit of intro on me, but I won't say I've had my fingers in a few different pies, but I'm involved in a few different aspects of cycling. So I've been involved with bikes and loved bikes since a young kid, basically. I was always on a bike. It was really my means of transport to get to my first passion, which was horses. I then moved on and got involved with the cycling club. I liked the idea of cycling rather than horses because it was a steel frame that you could make do what you wanted to do rather than a horse with its own mind. So I thought it was a lot cheaper until I got really into it. So I used the bike to get to the horse, which actually gave me a wee bit of fitness. Got involved with the cycling club, started doing a little bit of racing, enjoyed the racing, enjoyed the whole club atmosphere. So I was about 17 when I was doing that, which was quite a good way of making friends, going out in the evenings and things, with getting a bit of independence as well. So I did a load of club riding. I then moved on and started doing a little bit more Scottish events, which led to English events, British series events. So I did racing all over Britain, picking up Scottish titles, British titles. So I did road, time trials and track. Then started to spread my wings a wee bit, started racing internationally, doing one day races, stage races, Commonwealth Games, World Champs, and culminating in the Olympics. So I was totally absorbed by the whole cycling thing, but as an athlete, purely as an athlete, not considering coaching at that point. In 1997, I had a cycling accident, which ended my cycling career, and then still wanted to be involved, got involved with sports science, studied sports biomechanics, and then moved into teaching in a university and getting involved in coaching, and continued down the coaching path, initially with women and then with some juniors. I've kind of worked my way down to youth now, because I've got kids of my own that are racing, and I'm totally immersed in the youth cycling at the minute, to the point that I can't see past it, to be honest. I love being on the ground with the riders. I like to actually be with the riders rather than just being involved in cycling activities from a distance. So I'm regularly coaching, regularly at events and races with them. So that's where I am just now. But again, I still ride my bike. I ride with a group of friends, which are all mums, and we all have a bit of a chat. We call ourselves coffee shop cruisers. And I would like to come on to that later, actually, because it works really well for involving women in cycling. That's me.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Shall we move on to Helen? Would you mind giving us an introduction?
Okay, well, I always had a bike as a kid, and I used to use it, similar to what Sarah said, to go out with my mates in the evening to get about town. But I was never at that point interested in cycling as such, although I was always active. And I got into running in my early 20s, did a few marathons, managed to get myself injured, and thought I wanted to give triathlon a go. So I thought, I'm going to stop running for a while, I'm going to learn to swim. So I took up triathlon. And again, similar to what you said, Fiona, I bought a bike on the bike to work scheme. It was actually it claimed to be a cyclocross bike, but it wasn't really. It was more of a commuter, but I love that bike. That was 2012, and I did absolutely everything in it. I did triathlons on it. I did crit racing on it. It was, I mean, I was always like way at the back of the field on this big heavy bike. But I gradually got more and more into the cycling side of things, and the swimming and the running kind of fell away, and I realized that cycling was just the best bit, and got first of all into road, because that had been my introduction through triathlon. Did a little bit of off-road triathlon, but mostly kind of road stuff, a little bit of crit racing, a little bit of road racing, joined Stirling Bike Club. I was a regular on all their Saturday road rides for years and years. And then somebody mentioned this thing called cyclocross, and it's completely taken over my life. So had to go at cyclocross, went along to a couple of races to see what it was all about, thought this is ridiculous, I love it. But the problem was I was terrified of falling off. I was terrified of sliding in the mud. I'd come from a road background. I knew nothing about off-road riding. So it took a lot of trial and error, a lot of persistence, a lot of coaching, a little bit of giving up and going back and trying again. And just eventually got really, just totally fell in love with cyclocross, got really, really into it. And I'm currently undergoing the same process with mountain biking. So I started off not knowing very much about mountain biking, not being a very confident rider, and I've gradually, just through a lot of persistence, a lot of coaching, some really good friends who encouraged me, got really, really into that. So I'm now a cyclocross and mountain bike coach. I've done a little bit of club coaching with the junior section of Stirling Bike Club. I run the school mountain bike club at the school where I'm a teacher. And I've also done other kind of bits and pieces. And specifically, I'm really interested in kind of encouraging people to go through that process that I've been through, from coming from a really low level of skill and confidence, thinking I can't do this, I'm gonna die, to being able to compete and to hold their own and to really enjoy it. And just be able to go out there and ride trails they maybe thought they could never ride before. And in my experience, it's, I hate kind of generalizing, but it's generally women that kind of fit into that bracket. I've run a couple of beginners sessions for mountain biking, and it's not been exclusively women that show up, but it seems to be largely women. So I'm really interested in that aspect of building confidence, and getting people to really believe that they can do something. And I think that's something that a lot of women can relate to. And that's kind of where I am at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Helen. That was amazing. You have fitted in so much in 8 years. Your passion and enthusiasm just shines through. So yeah, the school that have you are very lucky to have you. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Isabel.
Hi. So I started riding my bike when I was teeny tiny. Like, I don't remember learning to ride a bike really at all. I grew up in Wales, and me and my dad and my mum and my sister used to go out on loads of like mountain bike rides on the weekend. And I've always loved doing that. And then when I was in primary school, my teacher was on the committee for the local cycling club. And that was it, really. I joined the club, and I think about 4 years later, I was still in it. I started racing then. And I found out that I didn't really enjoy racing as much as I enjoyed the training and the just kind of riding around, just like doing laps on it was like an outdoor tarmac velodrome. And I just enjoyed that and not the competitive aspect of it. So I stopped racing and just carried on training. And then my schoolwork got too busy, so I stopped riding at the club. But I had to do voluntary work for school. So I gave the club an email and asked if I could come back and coach. And that was it, really. I've been coaching ever since. So I coached with them since 2016. And I still, like, when I'm back at home, I'll drop in. I coached all summer as soon as they opened up after lockdown. And so I coach with them whenever I can. And then when I moved up to here for uni, because I'm in Edinburgh University now, I gave ERC a call and I asked if they had any space for coaches. And it was a very positive response. They were like, we don't have anyone female at the moment. It'd be great if you could come on board. So I pitched up and realized that I would need to buy a cyclocross bike, because I had only ever been a road and track coach before. Like, I do a lot of mountain biking, but I would have to buy a cross bike. So I got one, and yeah, I've been a cross coach and a mountain bike coach now for 2 years. And then last year I joined the youth panel for Scottish cycling, and that's been really great. It just means I get to kind of like help implement ideas that I've like always wanted to do. It's like the Active Girls Day Fund and kind of helping with like young coaches events and stuff like that. It's just really nice to kind of like do something extra on top of the coaching, kind of the stuff that I like to do. But yeah, that's me.
Okay, thanks, Izzy, and it's great to have you. That's like a really interesting story. How it's good to have like the perspective of someone so young that's like face to face with the kids coming through the clubs being coached. So thank you for that. And finally, Leanne.
Hi, I'm Leanne. So I first started cycling about 10 years ago, just commuting to work and back. Absolutely fell in love with it, became a bit addicted. Got myself a mountain bike and again fell in love with mountain biking. Almost forgot road cycling was even a thing after that. So I've done lots of big challenges like cycling NC 500 and cycling to Aberdeen, made loads of friends through cycling. And then thought my passion really is trying to get more women into cycling. So I started up a mountain bike kind of meetup group, got lots of ladies involved and started that regularly. And through Scottish Cycling got partial funding to do my mountain bike leadership course. So I'm now a mountain bike leader level 2 and a breeze leader as well. So try to do regular rides as much as I can. Try to get as many women out riding as possible. And as of last year, I joined the Women's Development Group. So I think there's quite a few Women's Development Group girls here, actually, I can see. So our aim is just really to try and get as many, well, to try and develop the women's cycling, really, and try and just improve the cycling available for women. So yeah, I do silly things like Strathpuffer, Glentress 7 and put myself through silly things and then just expect that women will come and follow me and do it as well.
All right, thanks, Leanne. I know exactly what you're saying. You've got lots of experience throughout all the different areas throughout Scotland, and I think your involvement with Breeze is going to be a really good contribution, I think, on this talk.
Yeah, I think Breeze is brilliant for getting women into cycling, and I mean, yeah, it's completely invaluable, and we need more and more and more Breeze leaders, but I'll talk about that again later.
Okay, great. Well, thanks to all the panel for those introductions. If we want to just open up the discussion now, I think the first question, why are there fewer women and girls involved in cycling? Please, everyone on the chat, please do get involved as we go along. It would be great to get your questions at any point during this. But on that first question, I think I might go first to Helen, who sort of alluded to confidence as being one of the key issues. So over to you, Helen.
I was kind of thinking about this because it's a really difficult question, because I don't think there's a simple answer. Like, we've just been given the guidance at school to reopen our clubs, and I just reopened the mountain bike club and got the kids to start putting their names forward, and there are no girls, and there were no girls last year. And I think there's just something about the whole of society and the way that we are kind of socialized by the whole of society. It's almost like cycling is just not one of the things that girls do. And so to get involved in cycling, you've got to be a girl who's comfortable breaking the mold a little bit and not following the crowd. And that's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. And I think trying to break into something that's a male-dominated hobby can be quite intimidating as well. And I was saying in an email to Mel when she was asking for some background, when I was growing up, I always had hobbies that were a bit weird. So I did martial arts, and I played role-playing games, and I was into sci-fi, and it was not stuff that girls did. So when I came to cycling, the fact that it was male-dominated didn't put me off. But I think that kind of, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's seen as something that girls do, so girls don't want to do it. So how do we get them into it? And I think there is a thing, perhaps it's more for kind of older women, I don't know, because obviously I've only come into cycling kind of, in the last few years, but I think there is a confidence thing as well for a lot of women, particularly with racing. If you're doing events where it's a mixed field, it can be very intimidating being on the start line with men. So I don't know if there's an element of that as well.
Okay. What anyone else got any comments there? Just in. Sarah.
Yeah, I think I like Helen, I was having a good think about this one, and I think it probably goes way back. So the tradition was that it was the men that rode the bikes. The men would work and then come home and go out on the bikes, maybe with a group or a weekend. And I think it falls into that kind of stereotypical thing, wife's busy with the kids, the meals, the house, and all the rest. So the girls don't grow up seeing the mums riding. And I think that mums didn't ride bikes, so why would the girls want to ride bikes? But that's changing now. But I think that stood for such a long time that, as a child, your mother's your role model. My mum did ride a bike, but she was the odd one in the town that did ride the bike. And I think that's influenced a lot of people that are adults today, that are kind of my age, etc., and younger. But the whole new generation, with all the cycling women now that we are getting, which is fantastic, with Breeze and all the rest, and women's coaching sessions and all sorts. I mean, there was nothing like that. With them all getting that, their daughters are going to grow up that bikes are a women's game too. So mum's mending a puncture in the kitchen, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's quite normal. Mum's not weird and stuff. So I think that perspective is changing, and I think that'll just grow, and we've just got to give that time to grow by developing the Breeze rides. So we've got, it sounds a bit kind of sexist, but so that we've got mums that are cyclists that can give their kids and their daughters the love of bikes. I do think there is a lot of that, you know, and obviously now there's bikes that fit women, there's kit that fits women. It's not a case of just making do with an old leather Brooks saddle that was, you know, that a man had before. So I think we're turning. I think we are making big steps forward, and I think for us as adults, encouraging girls to see that it's normal, that's going to be the big thing that keeps them in the sport. I think, you know, that we don't see it as being competing with a men's sport, we just treat it as being normal. I think that's going to help. So I think tradition's got a lot to do with that.
I think so too, and I think like there's maybe a differentiation between like girls coming in through school that have inspiring role model mothers, or I had older sort of people to kind of look up to, versus, you know, people coming to the sport as mums. Like, so, and I think the point that you made there about finding that sort of traditional family model of mums don't do that kind of stuff, and actually just allowing themselves the time to do that. I think that's a very relevant thing, but different from the thing where girls are coming in when they're younger through school, and, you know, when they're teenagers, that piece. I'd be interested to hear Izzy's point of view on, you know, the younger people that she sees at Edinburgh Road Club. What do you think?
I think, yeah, we get very few like kind of girls that are just like starting out riding for the first time. Quite often I'll be 50% of the girls that are at the sessions. But yeah, I think a lot of it is confidence. Like it's quite intimidating to be like, if you're like the only girl in the session, and like our sessions are kind of anywhere between 8 and 14 or 8 and 16, and there's a load of, if there's a group of like 13 and 14-year-old boys that are all really good friends, and you're a 9-year-old girl that's just kind of coming along, it's quite an intimidating environment to be in. And if you don't click with the sport at first, if you don't have that immediate love with it, I think you won't necessarily want to come back into the environment to try and like persevere with it. I think that's got quite a lot of like effect at the kind of like the build up into it. Whereas like if you're older and you're trying to like get into a hobby yourself, you're much more likely to kind of stick with it, to like try and get stuck into the sport because you know it's good for you. Whereas when you're younger, you're just like, oh, well, mum and dad want me to go along and like try this sport, or like maybe I've seen it on TV. And also like there's some stuff that's been said in the chat where like you don't see professional women cycling on the TV. You see the men, and you see big packs of men. It's just not the same. There's no kind of like, I don't know, it's not the same kind of representation that you would want if you're a young girl watching stuff. Like I never had any like representation of women on the TV when I was growing up, and I stopped racing. So I don't know. It works somewhere.
Okay, thanks. What about you, Leanne?
Yeah, the confidence thing is really interesting, because when I was like looking into this, I thought I would find some facts. And about, this is from a Women in Sport article, and it shows women only apply for jobs when they meet 100% of the criteria, whereas men are more likely, they'll apply for a job even if they only meet 60% of the criteria. So I don't know if that's quite interesting to look at the psychology of women, and we like to know that we're able to do something before we give it a bash, which is a very generalized term, and I know that's not going to be everyone, but I know for my women that come along to my rides, they quite often want to know where we're going, how long we're going to be out for, do you think I can make it, what's the hills like? Well, there'll be a coffee shop obviously, but for me, I think I've always, I think I was mountain biking for more than 2 years before I even attempted the Red Trail, because I just really wanted to know I can definitely do it. I'm not going to be halfway down it and hate it. So I don't know if there is something about confidence, and yeah, but I suppose it's something that we can look at with coaching before races and stuff like that. we can come on to that anyway when we think of initiatives. Yeah.
Can I just add in one other thing? I think as well, a lot of women's first experience of cycling is with a male, and it's harder because they're naturally stronger. But without going into all of these things that we all are aware of, that can be a first impression. So I'm useless on the bike because I can't do it, and they can be pleasantly surprised when they go and ride with with females in like-minded group, not necessarily athletic training females, but just riding females. So I think as you say, it's getting that confidence, and that's what Breeze does, because you don't have to go out with your boyfriend or your husband or the male chain gang to find out that that's not really where you are. Doesn't mean you can't get there, but I think that first impression, it can be the same for young kids going out with dad who just wants to keep the pressure on and half wheel them all the time. That could put kids off, and yet you can get them back years later as a teenager, and now they can drop dad just because they're older, whether it's male or female, and suddenly they enjoy cycling again, because actually it's not about just getting a hard time. So first impressions can stick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think what I see, like girls in particular, teenage girls are, they operate in packs. They cannot possibly stick their head above the parapet and risk being shot down by their friends by doing something unusual. So the fact, what I see is missing is like more stuff coming through schools where there's groups of girls that are, put in the position of cycling and allowed to grow in that space. It just doesn't exist.
Can I come in as well? I had a thought when Sarah was talking about the history of the sport, and I've been thinking, coming in from a background in triathlon's there's a much more even gender balance. And I was thinking about it earlier while I was eating my tea, and I was thinking, is it because triathlon's a relatively new sport, and because it's fairly new, it doesn't have that huge weight of history behind it, where all we've ever seen is men doing it? And also men and women race over the same distances, that they race together, so there's much less of a division, I think, between men and women in triathlon. And in cycling, you've got that massive weight of history and all the stuff about there not being equivalent women's races and women racing over different distances, and we only ever see men doing it on the TV. I think there's a huge difference there.
Yeah, I would agree. There's probably some learns from that.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to say about the triathlon as well. It's interesting because I've been cycling for years and years, and I've never done a cycling race really. But I've done loads of triathlons and never thought of them as being races. So you're definitely right that there's something different in the inclusiveness of it. I don't really know what it is. I have no idea. I still wouldn't say a race, but I'd give it a bash.
Yeah. And even in outside racing, if we just think about events and participation in, I don't know, sportives or anything, the numbers are skewed the same, aren't they? Women are so underrepresented. Okay. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking of was, how many famous female cyclists are out there. If you were like a young kid and you said, I want to be like Chris Froome or Geraint Thomas, or there's a whole host of household names that are male cyclists. But I think you'd probably struggle to come up with some female ones that are well known. So if you were saying to your friends, I really want to be like her, they wouldn't know who, I don't know, Hannah Barnes was, chances are. And I think there's maybe a PR job to be done on some of these like aspirational, influential, successful cyclists that are potentially in the media. I think there's not enough coverage of female events. All these things lead into that lack of, not credibility, but lack of confidence in saying, I want to be a cyclist. Okay, I'm aware that we are halfway through and we've got two great topics still to cover. So if it's okay, will we move on to the second question? So this one, what initiatives, Scottish Cycling and wider, are addressing this, and how do they help? So I guess, Leanne, do you want to go on that one?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to plug Breeze again for being so good, for bringing, I don't know if it's plugging it, but yeah, and also guided rides as well, because I suppose not women don't necessarily want to. So guided rides is kind of, Mel's probably better at explaining this, is like the is not just for women. So it's the same idea, but it's for women and men. So the Let's Ride page is so good for going on and finding. But what else? So obviously I'm part of the women's development group as well. So it's been a difficult year having COVID, because we had so many big plans this year to, we were going to do something for World Mental Health Day, or yeah, Mental Health Day, and obviously that got scrapped. But just, I suppose, trying to promote women that are out there riding bikes and showing them what they're doing, so that people have the role models that should be there. So I know Leanne Farmer, one of the people in the group, one of the girls in the group, did a interview with 3 different women that were out riding, just to show, and it was from a race, somebody who races, somebody who's just got into riding, and somebody who's getting quite into it. So it was just like different women, what they're doing and how it's affecting them. So just showing women out riding bikes. And another initiative I wanted to talk about was I've been wanting to get into racing, and obviously haven't had the confidence to do it, but this year, before COVID, I went on a cross-country coaching day, just to see if I could find out what it was like and see if it was for me. So it gave me the kind of confidence to sign up for a race. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it because of COVID, but see, just having the idea of what was going to come in the race and understanding how it was all going to work. This is where it starts and this is how long it goes on for. And it was really, really good, and really gave me the confidence to go, yeah, I can do that. I can definitely go and give it a bash. So I think all these coaching sessions that we've been having before the races, I know they had it for the cyclocross as well, and that got a lot of women involved in it. So I think that was really, really good. Definitely more coaching before races would be brilliant, I think.
Okay, yeah, I actually went to one of those cyclocross things. It was amazing. So totally made a difference. And also they are predominantly, even if they're not exclusively for women, a lot of the beginners ones are attended by women. So yeah. Who would like to go next?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry, Helen. Shall I keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Yep. So coming down to the younger girls again, which is where I've been spending most of my time, we formed what was called Like a Lassie, which I think many of you will have heard of. And this came about, Anna Dericourt is actually on this call. Hi, Anna. You can keep me right. But we had a chat actually at the cyclocross in Mull. I remember it being really, really cold, standing outside chatting, but I think we stood for probably the best part of an hour chatting. And we realised that ERC had a large volume of girls, which was quite unusual compared to other clubs. And I'm involved with Deeside Thistle, and we had the same. We've got a large amount of girls in our club. When I have training sessions, it's often more girls than boys. So we're a really lucky situation. So we thought, well, we'll put our heads together and see what we can do to offer things for the girls that aren't just at performance level. So that the better girls, if you like, get invited to the performance sessions, the race sessions, the nationals, etc. But we wanted something to keep them involved below that. And we wanted to start to build bonds with the riders as well, because every time these girls meet, they're usually on a start line, and a race is a race. We all know what a race is. So they start to get a ranking of where they fit. They kind of know where they fit in the scheme of racing. And I don't know that that's always healthy, because that's the race, but that's only a little picture of you as a person and you as a cyclist. So we decided, long story short, we started things off and got a day going, and we had a workshop day, which was the most wonderful day, and we squeezed it in. It was the day of the Scottish Cycling Awards, and we got it in just before lockdown, thankfully. Most wonderful day. Anna put in an awful lot of work. we started with a practical session of dodgeball, which we decided we didn't want any riding. So it was a cycling group, but we did no riding, because that was then going to reinforce this hierarchy. And what we didn't want was to start with a ride and then everybody kind of slink to the back of the room because they were the last one on the group ride, or they got dropped on a hill and feel inadequate. We wanted new people to meet for the first time as well, and to learn to get on without the cycling in it. So we felt that was really important, and I think it worked really, really well. Completely informal dodgeball, very competitive actually, but it was great dodgeball games. We followed that with a little bit of a workshop. We had a nutrition and cookery class, which was brilliant. The girls all did lots of cooking. So they made the lunch for all of the group. They all made lunch. We had Katie Archibald there. We had, I'm trying to remember who we had now. We had, I'm trying to remember, I can't remember who we had. It seems like ages ago. But we had a great day, and the girls all mixed, and there was lots of friendships made there because of the groups that they were in for dodgeball. They never got these opportunities. So it started off a really good theme, and we had a talk about saddles for girls, and we had a talk about periods with Jude, and Jude will be doing a talk on Friday with that. So it got the ball rolling. Anna organised quite a lot of challenges actually over the summer months, and that kept them going. We've had stretching classes, which we ran right from lockdown up to on Zoom, right up to the summer, and we're going to start them again. Anna's got a lot of ideas under our hat that we're going to do, but that's been really, really good for keeping the girls together, and not just the competitive element. And we've loads of ideas that we want to do, but obviously current status we can't do them yet. But I think that's going to be good, and we're looking, for all clubs to be involved with that. It's just that we headed it as we had lots of girls in our clubs as it was. So watch this space on that one, because that's good fun.
Okay. I'm intrigued by Lara Phillips' name coming up on the screen. Anyway, I'll move on. Thank you, Sarah. I think that sounds as though like keeping it fun is the key to, any initiative should be fun, whether it's for like the young girls or for the older mums that, like to go out and get their coffee. Wouldn't be the same without that. So, Helen, well, Izzy, do you want to say something here?
I was just going to come in off the back of what you're saying about the cyclocross coaching, because I think that coaching before events has just been so powerful, and particularly what the West Lothian Clarion have done with their race that they have at Linlithgow in January. And I've been at that race as a rider and as a coach for the last 4 or 5 years, and you get something out of the coaching session no matter what level you're at, and no matter what your role is and how you're participating. And I think going back to the confidence thing, that can be really important, because certainly I'd signed up for a cyclocross race. I'd got totally freaked out on the start line. I'd ridden 1 lap and gone home. And after I'd defrosted and washed my bike and had a bath, I entered Linlithgow, and that was the coaching and the race that kind of got me back on the horse, so to speak. And I'd like to think that it's done that kind of model has done the same for a lot of other people, because it's given you the confidence to be on the start line thinking, yeah, I can do this, and I've got the skills to do it. And the same as what Leanne was saying, as a mountain biker, I certainly find myself thinking, well, I know I could ride that, but do I, this could go wrong and that could go wrong. So I tend not to really ride things unless I'm really, really confident. I'm getting a bit better at switching that bit of my brain off, but it's quite a difficult skill. I think having those kind of women only spaces is really important. And again, I was saying in the email I sent to Mel recently, it used to be that, having come from a background where I was always doing male dominated hobbies, I didn't see the point of women only groups, and I didn't see the point of women only rides. And then I went along to a coaching session that just happened to be women only, and the energy was completely different, and I got such a lot out of it. and it's really made me realise that I think women-only events really do have a place in encouraging women to get involved.
Yep, thank you. Lizzie?
Yeah, I'd say the same with the women-only coaching events. I coached at the ERC cyclocross race last September, and we did a women's-only coaching kind of session beforehand, and it's exactly the same thing. It just helps so much to just kind of let you dip your toes in like it's very kind of risk-free. You can mess up, no one minds. It doesn't matter. And then you just get like a run through the course beforehand, like a nice little practice lap. And I think that kind of scenario should just be implemented in like girls only like free kind of taster sessions to clubs. Like just kind of have like let all the girls on the waiting list jump the priority list. Like I just think you should do it like that, because if all the girls join together and they're all starting new, they'll kind of form a little friend group hopefully, and then they'll all want to join the club, and then hopefully they'll all kind of start coming at the same time, and then you'll just have a nice little pack of girls that come, whereas the boys will just tend to like, it doesn't matter if like not all their friends are there, they'll just happily kind of come along regardless. Whereas I think the girls, if they find out like one of their friends isn't coming that week, the whole lot won't turn up. So I think if you kind of start forming little groups really early on, it'll be really beneficial in the long run to just have a nice kind of good solid group of girls in every session.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think girls are really loyal to the group and it will keep them going. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. And finally, this, I guess, is for a bit of like blue sky thinking. What are your best ideas for what else needs to happen to increase participation amongst women and girls? I guess we might have touched on some of this already. More coaching for sure. But anything else that you see that could really benefit? What about you, Sarah? Can we come to you first?
Few things. I was thinking there's not enough displays by girls. You can go to lots of events and there'll be stunt displays and boys doing this, boys doing that. I think, girls displaying what they can actually do. So whether it be at a cyclocross event or whatever, just so that young girls that are there, or city centre crits or whatever, something like that, where girls that don't cycle already can see other girls doing things, so that they might be a bit like kind of Helen said, she maybe didn't do what the other girls did and did something different, but maybe doesn't know what they are. And if you see the boys doing it, but then you see girls doing it, and you go, well, actually, I can do that too. And I quite like the look of those, a pump track or something like that. I think, these portable short track things that you can take around places, let the girls display that it's normal for girls, and actually girls can be technically very good at the skills, and let others see that. So I think more public display would be good. But I also think, and schools are key, and maybe targeting another sports club. So if you go to choose maybe a girls' sport, and I know again it's stereotypical, let's go to netball, or let's go and speak to the netball coach of the school club or whatever, or the local netball team, and can we see if they would like to come and have a taster session of cycling? Because they're more likely to come en masse. They're going to be active kids that quite like activity. You're not trying to pull kids that don't maybe want to go and do something, but mum would like them to be active. They're active, and get them involved. Let them try a different sport. You're not poaching them. You're not taking them away and saying, we want to make you into the cycling club and drop netball. But I think it's a good way to let them try another sport, and they come en masse. So you've got a group of girls, but you target a girls' sport. And I think that could be useful. Swimming would be a nice one for that. During lockdown, we saw, I've seen so many teenagers out on the road that I don't know. I'd love to go and follow them and ask them if they'd like to join a club, but clearly that's not acceptable behaviour. But, I think I'd like to have gone to the swimming club and said, look, you haven't been able to swim for 6 months, but I have seen your swimmers out in the road. I'd like to coach them. I'd like to help them to learn some good group riding. I don't want to take them necessarily to this cycling club. You can have them back, but I'd love to let them have some exposure to cycling. And that might be lifelong sport for them as well when they're injured from swimming or had enough. But I didn't do it because I had enough on my plate. But I think there's opportunities to actually go to other clubs because you've got a group ready. So I see that as being a good way of capturing more young girls that might be interested but just don't know the way in.
Okay, yeah, great ideas there. Thank you. Leanne, shall we hear from you?
Yeah, so following on from the coaching kind of before races idea, I don't know how feasible this would be, but I wondered if it would be possible to have, if you were going to your first ever race, some way that you could kind of sign up with someone who's done lots of races and knows what it's all about. So via social media or something like that. If you had, I don't know, a way that you could have a buddy system. So if you have any questions at all, you contact your buddy. Yeah, this is when it'll all set off. This is what to expect. And then you meet up with them when you get there. I don't know whether that would work or whether people just want to go and race and be in their game and not think about it. But maybe just having someone there, because there'll be a lot of people who have no idea what goes on and don't know anybody else in the sport to even really ask. So just as a way of using social media like that. And people have been talking about Isla Short as well, and her using her as an amazing role model. And I know on social media, all her social media is fantastic and so positive. So absolutely, yeah, she's so honest about everything as well. So I think having all the role models there, definitely a brilliant thing.
Yeah, I agree. Role models and that whole idea of maybe having like a kind of mentoring system or a buddy system to bring on some of the younger people.
Yeah.
Or the confident people.
Yeah.
Okay, for sure. Izzy, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of the visibility. Like you need to have something to kind of look up to, and you need to be kind of surrounded by, even if you don't want to aspire to like a professional athlete or anything like that. It's always helpful to be kind of surrounded in that sort of environment where it could be there and it could be aspirational if you want it to. So like just kind of everything on social media, like if you could have every professional cyclist, if they could all have social media like how iSport uses it, that would be amazing, but it's not quite the same. But just kind of that whole like very positive, and even if when stuff does go wrong, kind of talking about it in like a healthy way, because I think a lot of like just with sports in general, there's like starting to be a conversation about when races go wrong and when stuff doesn't really happen very well. But I think with women in particular, I think we tend to focus generally like much more on negativity, and we'll tend to drop out, particularly when you're in puberty and stuff like that. There's like a really big dropout rate for girls in sport. And I think if you've kind of got those, like if your social media feeds are filled with athletes that are talking about it in a very positive way, I think you'll be more likely to kind of carry on with your sport if you are aware of a healthy way to deal with stuff like that. I think, yeah, if you could somehow get every single athlete to change their social media use. But I really like the idea of that buddy system. I think that's a really good idea.
Okay, no, that's a really good shout on the social media. And even if they weren't prepared to do it themselves, if there's some kind of agency that, or maybe if they knew the positive impact it would have, maybe they would then up their social media game. So maybe it's just a case of communicating with them and letting them know that they could make a difference.
Yeah, or kind of some sort of account that would just kind of like create profiles of like athlete history and just be like, oh, and in this race it didn't go so well, and this is how it, like maybe, I don't know, some sort of curated kind of collection. I don't know, like an Instagram account, something like that.
Yeah, and then they don't actually have to do the work themselves.
Yeah,
they're doing it for them, like presenting that to other women.
Yeah.
Good one, thank you. So Helen, we'll come to you last, and then I guess we want to leave some time for questions. I can see there's quite a few. So over to you, Helen.
I think one of my big bugbears is when the organisers of events are inadvertently or otherwise sending out a signal that they're not valuing the women's field as much. And so there's the whole question of equal prize money, but also even just categories. So my sister tried to enter a mountain bike race, and it was one of these endurance races, and she was trying to enter as a female quad. And there was no category on the website to enter a female quad. You could enter a mixed quad or a male quad, but they just missed that out altogether. So it's just little things like that. Thinking about, if you are offering something to the men, offer it to the women as well. And it doesn't matter if you've got a tenth as many women, because if you're sending out a signal saying to the women, well, we don't really value your participation as much, then they're going to say, well, you know, sod you. And you're going to put people off from entering. So I think having event organisers always look at everything from the lens of how is this going to look to women who want to take part is really important.
Yep, absolutely. Mel, are there some questions that we should that you can feed in from the audience on some of the topics we've covered?
So there's no specific questions. There was one about Breeze that I have answered in the chat, but lots of comments and lots of really great ideas actually. So I will be kind of taking note of all them. A lot of agreement with the panel about the importance of role models and having women in cycling and women's cycling events and competition, kind of getting that raised by the media. And there was also some ideas around offering coaching sessions, not just before races, but to help beginner cyclists. So recognising that there can be a gap for people who want to go out and breeze rides, but aren't quite confident enough yet. So Lara provided some information about that, because I know that's something that she's started recently, and doing that on Sofa to Saddle. She's called it, which I think is a great name.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Actually, it's interesting, all the hashtags like Ride Like a Lassie and She Can, She Will. I mean, they are really great, empowering, that we just need to see more of it and hopefully encourage it all to grow. So thank you all for responding on those questions. I think we've had a great discussion, and the comments from the chat sort of confirm that it sounds like we're on the right track, and there's some other great suggestions out there. So thanks everyone that contributed on the chat. Just so finally, before we all kind of round this up, I'd like to ask each of the panel just one question. What would you say to a girl, a woman that's lacking the confidence to take that next step, whether it's to sign up on a group ride, whether it's to enter an event, whether it's just to get on the bike for the first time? What would be your sort of words of wisdom in a nutshell? I'll come to Leanne first.
I always forget how to unmute, sorry. Well, I suppose 10 years ago, probably not even that, I couldn't even bump down a curb, or couldn't figure out how to cycle the 3 miles to get to my work. So within that time, I've managed to achieve quite a lot. So I think if I can do it, then pretty much anyone can. So yeah, just there's so much out there. I mean, use Let's Ride and ask somebody, and yeah, so much out there. So probably just get out there and do it.
Yeah, get out and do it. It's good advice. Okay, great. What about you, Sarah?
Years ago, I would have said, pre-helmet days, I would have said it's just a wonderful feeling to feel the wind blowing through your hair, but I can't really say that now. We all wear helmets, but I used to love that feeling nonetheless. Oh, sorry, Craig. But I think it's go and get out and enjoy the freedom. It's the freedom to me. I think we're all tied to so many things that we do, so that the bike is the answer to freedom, but it doesn't mean isolation. So it's freedom. You can do so many things on it. Yeah, you can make new friends, you can ride with existing friends, you can ride on your own, you can ride in different weather. To me it's freedom. It's about that freedom and that space that you can get which is why I like the outdoors rather than the indoor things. It's freedom to me. And I think that's what it's given me. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, well said, thank you. Izzy? No
I mean,
pressure.
I'd just go for it. Like if you sign up for an event or a race and you turn up and it all goes horribly wrong and you don't like it, so what? It didn't go very well. You don't have to do it again. You can find something else you enjoy. I remember I did a cyclocross race when I was maybe, I think it must have been under 12s. I did not enjoy it at all. I cried the whole way around, but now I'm a cross coach. So it's like kind of just do it. There's no harm in trying something once. I mean, maybe don't persevere forever and ever if you can kind of get a feeling you don't like it. There's no harm in trying something once.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Helen, finally.
I'd say if someone was really unsure and not feeling confident, I'd ask them, what is it they need? Like, what is the biggest barrier for them? If it's that they don't know anybody else who cycles, then, you know, join a club, find a breeze ride, something like that. If it's that they don't feel like they've got the skills and they're afraid that they're, like I was, afraid they're going to fall off the dash, then, you know, get some coaching, and just reach out. There's so much out there. There's so many clubs. There's so much support. There's loads on social media. Like, there's some fantastically supported Facebook groups that are out there where, you know, there's a women's mountain bike group that I'm part of where people will just ask any questions that they want to, and there's always women willing to chip in with answers. So just to say there is support out there for whatever you need to overcome those barriers. So go for it.
Yeah, okay, that is definitely a common theme there. Go for it. Just get out there, and absolutely the freedom it affords everyone that takes part, and the fun. So, and I guess it's on all of us, isn't it, to, if we ever see a female, like, you know, wondering should they, shouldn't they, you know, to offer that support and encouragement wherever we can. I'm sure we do already. Okay, well, thanks everyone. Thanks to the panel. That's been a really wonderful, interesting, informative night. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the audience for coming along and joining in. Before we finish, I'd just like to call out, I know that we've already heard about it, on Friday, there's our final SC Talks, which is all about cycling and periods. So an interesting and slightly possibly taboo topic, which we're tackling head on. So I'm delighted about that. So I hope we'll all tune into that one, and we'll see you then. Okay, thanks everyone, and have a great evening.